Hare Krishna. So, welcome back. We're continuing our discussion on the wonderful topic, although this sounds strange to say, the wonderful topic of leaving the body, which is such an important topic to discuss, and something that so far everyone has been finding very useful and helpful. And I wanted to begin today, not by reading something yet, but by discussing one aspect of leaving the body. And that aspect is the process of dying is the process of losing control, because the body is breaking down, or if it's not breaking down and we die suddenly due to an accident, whatever the case is, we're out of control, for sure, out of control. And so many things in our life go out of our control. And so, as we've been discussing, Prabhupada is saying life now is a practice for leaving our body. And there are situations in life that mimic, not exactly, but mimic the situation of leaving our body. And one of the ones we haven't discussed yet is this situation of not being in control, losing control. And this is probably one of the most difficult things to deal with, or I think one of the biggest tests in life. And even though we're devotees and we've heard over and over again that we're not controllers, Krishna is Ishvara, we're not Ishvara, he's Param Ishvara, we're little Ishvaras, we control little, not much. I think one of the problems that we face is we often try to control the wrong things. Rather than control what we can control about ourselves, we often try to control situations or other people, which either we shouldn't control or we can't control. And so I think life is a part of what we're meant to learn in life as a lesson is to be able to accept situations which we can't control, no matter how much we would want to control them. And this is the perfect preparation for leaving our body. I remember a few days ago we were talking about this, and I was mentioning the Jayadvaita Swami said that when Kadamba Kanana Maharaj had prostate cancer, and he didn't know at that point in time what the prognosis was, whether he was going to live or not. And he was very accepting of whatever the situation was going to turn out to be. And that could only be because that's the way he lives his life. That's how he's cultivated his consciousness, that I'm not the controller, things go a certain way, I must accept it. And so, because he cultivated that consciousness, then when he got this news that it's possible he could leave his body, he was very accepting of that. If we don't cultivate that consciousness, then when some disaster happens, it's difficult and sometimes impossible to accept. And they say that when a person learns that they're going to die, the first stage is denial, because we can't accept it. But for someone who's a very advanced devotee, that doesn't happen. They're so pliable to Krishna's will, and they see everything as Krishna's will. They can be accepting. So that's what we're trying to learn now. That's one of the best things we can learn in preparation for leaving our body, is to be accepting of Krishna's will rather than fighting. And a lot of times, as we know, we fight situations, but the situations are the way they are. We can't change them. We can't change people. This is how it is, and we fight it. And when we learn to accept it, even if we've been mistreated, even though we are innocent, still, often there's nothing we can do. I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to protect ourselves or do something, but I'm talking about those situations where either there's nothing you can do or there's no redeeming value to do anything other than waste your time or end up disturbing other people or making the situation worse. In those situations, the lesson is let go and just accept it. And that is very, difficult, but that is what we definitely must learn. If we say, I understand that Krishna is the supreme controller, and I understand I'm not the supreme controller, then this is how we practice it. When there are things which we cannot control, or also, not that we just can't control, but things we can control that we shouldn't control, because that, sometimes we think, okay, I detach because I can't control. But what about the situations you can control, but that you shouldn't control? You shouldn't try to control. It wouldn't be right. That also may even be more difficult to detach from, because you could change it, you could do something, but what you would do would be wrong. It would not be what Krishna wants, or would not produce a desirable outcome, but you could change it. We still have to back off. So this is, in my mind, of what we might call lessons of life, that we need to learn to be Krishna conscious. Or anyone needs to learn to live a sane life, or anyone needs to learn to live a more spiritual life. Letting go of what we can't or should not control is the big lesson. I think one of the biggest lessons, maybe the top 3 biggest lessons in preparing ourselves to leave our body in Krishna consciousness. And then we could say also, not just preparing ourselves for leaving our body, but preparing to live in a Krishna conscious way. And so, having said that, then the next statement follows logically, that life is this amazing opportunity to prepare ourselves to be Krishna conscious. Because if one of the main things we have to learn is to not try to control what we shouldn't control or can't control, then life gives us so many opportunities to do that. Sometimes it seems like life's giving us opportunities to do that constantly. There's just things we would love to fix, things we would love to change, people we would love to control, situations we would like to work out a certain way. And we can't control them. They're not going the way we want. People are not acting the way we want. And it's Krishna giving us an opportunity to say, okay, here's an opportunity for you to let go, because you can't control this. And I know you want to control it, I know you need to control it, but I'm trying to teach you what you should control, which is your mind and senses, and what you should not control, which is this situation. And unless you control your mind and senses, you won't detach from this situation. So those lessons are there all the time in life. And they need to be there because it's such a hard lesson to learn. Once my godbrother, we were talking about chanting and, getting a taste for chanting and how important that is. And he said, one of the symptoms of advancement in spiritual life is how much taste you have for chanting, because there's kind of a discussion of how important is it to have a taste. And he was saying, well, this is the barometer of how advanced you are in Krishna consciousness. So this is also another barometer of how advanced we are in Krishna consciousness, by how well we can let go of situations which we can't control. How well are we pliable to the will of Krishna, or how do we see the will of Krishna? How well, how should I say this? How well are we able to see the will of Krishna? And because here's the situation. So someone might say, well, how do I know it's the will of Krishna? And how do I know I shouldn't try to work to resolve this? And I can't answer that question for every situation. But when you've tried and tried and tried to change something, and you're failing, sometimes we have to say, okay, this must not be what Krishna wants. Now, there may be situations where we say, Krishna just wants me to work harder. And I would say that's more in terms of spreading Krishna consciousness, achieving goals in Krishna consciousness, that something Prabhupada really wanted, and we're going to try to make it work despite all obstacles. But even sometimes in those situations, even Prabhupada would say, okay, why we should work so hard, endeavor so hard? It's not happening. It doesn't seem Krishna wants it. So I think that's a situation in which we may push a lot harder against all odds. But within our own personal environment and lives, sometimes I think it becomes obvious that we're pushing, and it's just not happening. And it may be happening easily for some other devotee, but in my life, the same thing's not happening. And at that point, sometimes we just have to pull back and say, okay, if Krishna wants, it'll happen. And maybe I'm trying to push too much to make it happen, and he wants me to back off. Or maybe it's not going to happen, and maybe he doesn't want it to happen. Maybe I'm not qualified for it to happen. Or maybe I don't know how it's going to happen, and I can't do anything more, and I just have to pull back and say, okay, I've pulled the arm on the slot machine, and it's spinning around or spinning up and down, and there's nothing more I can do. So that's something that's very important to learn and adopt. And if we don't adopt that, often we can drive ourselves crazy, and we can work very hard to achieve something that maybe we shouldn't be trying for. Maybe it's not Krishna's will. So we have to be sensitive enough to understand, if I'm trying to do something and it's not happening, is it Krishna's will that I continue? Or is it Krishna's will that I give up? Well, I'm having trouble chanting 16 rounds. Yes, it's Krishna's will you chant 16 rounds. I'm having trouble following the principles. Yes, it's Krishna's will. I'm having trouble achieving a certain financial position. It's not happening. Or a certain level of success. It's not happening. Or I'm trying to create a certain situation, in a certain environment. It's not happening. That may be a sign that, no, don't endeavor beyond that. That's what Krishna wants. There's an interesting purport, and there's also in the Bhagavatam where Prabhupada says we should only work 8 hours a day, and then in the Isopanishad first verse, Isharvasham idam sarvam, Prabhupada says we should only work to achieve what we need. So now if I'm endeavoring with great effort and difficulty to achieve what I don't, far more than I require, if I'm working with great effort, 10 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours a day, that would mean I'm trying to control things beyond what is meant to happen, and I'm not satisfied with the way it's going, and I'm working so hard that I'm compromising my spiritual life in order to achieve something. That would be an example of I'm trying to control something I shouldn't control. And any time I'm trying to do something which is interfering with my spiritual life, which would have some negative impact on my spiritual life, then we should understand that this is not something I should be doing, or I shouldn't be trying to make this arrangement. And one time Prabhupada said, and it kind of became a mantra for us, over-endeavor is the cause of fall down. And so what did Prabhupada mean? He meant that if I endeavor to the point where I neglect my spiritual life, or I endeavor to the point where I seem to be working against Krishna's will, trying to achieve something that he has not authorized or wouldn't want, then it becomes antagonistic to my spiritual life. So I wanted to begin with that, because this is something we haven't discussed yet, and I think it's underlying everything we're discussing, this idea that leaving our body means letting go, and the more quickly and easily we let go, the more well we will be prepared in the later days of our life. I have, sometimes during the summer here in Alachua, I have allergies and my eyes get red and itchy. I have a little bit now. My eyes get red and itchy, And you can see sometimes in classes I'm sneezing, blowing my nose. And it's quite frustrating because the body is reacting to the pollen or something in the air. And I'm telling my body, no, it's fine, you don't have to react. But the body's reacting. And some days it's constantly dripping mucus, and my eyes are constantly wet and itchy, and I'm constantly sneezing. And sometimes, I don't like to take allopathic medicine, so you might say, well, why don't you just take allergy medicine, which is common sense, and will relieve me of suffering. And I always try to do it naturally, and I haven't, at least here in Alachua, I haven't found anything that works, although I've tried other things. But the allergy medicine is usually is a last resort when it's at that point where I'm constantly sneezing. And so why am I telling you all of this? Well, it's my experience. Try Bioforce. Okay, if we have it in America. So can you send me an email with that so I have it on my computer? So but the reason I'm telling you this is it becomes to the point where I feel like my body is totally out of control. You know, I blow my nose and I think, okay, I blow my nose, everything should be fine. But a few minutes later, more mucus, more itching, more sneezing. And in the height of the allergy season, when I'm like this, I always have this thought is that this is kind of like what death must be like, is your body is no longer healing. It's just getting worse and worse. It's out of your control. And there's nothing you can do. And it's extremely frustrating when your body, you know, imagine I'm just hitting myself and I can't control it. How frustrating is that? And so normally when we are ill, our body naturally heals itself, right? You have a bruise, it heals itself. You have a headache, it goes away. But when the body's breaking down to death, it's going in one direction. It's not healing itself. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. And at a certain point of disease, there's nothing we can do other than just try to make the person comfortable. The body is breaking down. So how frustrating is it that to watch your body break down and there's nothing you can do about it? I mean, what could be more frustrating than that? So that is the ultimate let go, because at this point it is there's nothing we can do. Like in hospice, they don't try to cure you because there is no cure. They just try to make you comfortable. Although one devotee went to India to die and she did Govardhan Purkram. She had, I forget if she had cancer or what she had, but the doctors gave up on her. So she said, okay, I'll go. While I have strength, I'll do Govardhan Purkram. And she got better. She got cured by doing Govardhan Purkram. Anyway, that's another topic for another day. Yeah, people, that would be good. Yeah. But the realization that I got from the allergy was I was watching my body go out of control, and everything I tried to do wasn't fixing it. It was just a symptom of the amount of pollen in the air that my body says you don't like, and so it was fighting against it. And so the ultimate letting go is when the body's falling apart and the body's out of our control. And it's not repairing itself. It's not going to get better. It's just getting worse. And we have to just watch it go that way. And that's actually what old age is. There's certain ailments that set in when the body's breaking down. I mean, we can prevent as far as possible, but the body wears out as it gets old. The energy levels go down somewhat. There are aches and pains here and there. And you're just watching your body getting older. And getting older means closer to dying. So we have to learn how to accept that if we're going to leave this world in Krishna consciousness. There has to be this, I'm not the supreme controller. This is the lesson. And just as it was Burjan Prabhu who said, the symptom of advancement in Krishna consciousness, or one of the symptoms, is your taste for chanting. I would say One of the symptoms of our advancement in spiritual life is our ability to let go of those things which we can't control, or our ability to let go of those things which we should not try to control, because it's just as bad to try to control something because you can control it, but you shouldn't control it, as it is to try to control what you can't control. They're both wrong. And maybe the second one is even worse because you actually can control it. And maybe it's more difficult because you can't control it and more difficult to detach, where the first, you can't control it, so once it gets in your head that you can't control it, perhaps it's easier to pull back. But when you can control it and you have to get in your head that I shouldn't control it, that may even be more difficult. So now, Kamaniya, I sent you an email. Did you get that? There's something I want to read, which is really amazing that Prabhupada has said. So, Kamini, if you could look for that email, and then I'll tell you when to put it up. I just want to first go through your comments or questions, because I wasn't paying attention. And then, Kamini, I'll ask you to put it up. And this is something Prabhupada said about quarantine. And I had sent it out, and a lot of what he said, it's difficult to understand. Can you find it? And I couldn't find it on the database, so this morning I transcribed it verbatim. And we're going to read that. So Guru Nishta is asking, how can we help someone who is afraid of death? So afraid that even just thinking that they would die someday keeps them awake and gives them palpitations. Well, it sounds like perhaps in their last life they had a traumatic death, or in this life they witnessed a traumatic death, or in their last life they witnessed a traumatic death. That may be the case. I can give general, if that's the case, they may need more than general philosophy, like some kind of past life regression hypnosis, and go in there and tweak that so they're not afraid. But did I tell this story? The author of, I think I told this story, the author of My Conversation with God. He told the story that he was when he was a young boy, he was horrified, or should we say mortified, horrified with the thought that his mother would die. And his mother said, "Don't lament when I die. Don't cry when I die. But when I die, dance on my grave. That my death is, we're going to some place better, so dance and celebrate." So he would say, after hearing that, he developed this idea that death is a going away party. So death is just a going away party. You're going to another dimension. And so those who are afraid to die, for those who are afraid to die, the good news is you don't die. The first thing that I heard when I first heard the devotees speak, it was October 1969. It was a class at the University of California at Berkeley. There was about 100 plus of us, at least 100. And about 15 devotees doing kirtan and then giving a lecture. And right in the beginning of the lecture, Hansaduta said, "You're not the body, you're spirit, soul, you're eternal, you don't die." And when I heard that, I was in seventh heaven. It's like, wow. This is the best thing I've heard in my life. And the reason was because I intuitively, I couldn't deal with the concept of death. It didn't make sense. So, if we can't explain to somebody, you don't die. It's just the body that dies, you don't die. You don't have to worry about death. And the other thing is, you've already died millions of times. It's nothing new. So if we could help people understand that the fact that your soul, you don't die, is something you should rejoice about. It's really good news. Best news of your life. You don't die. Wow, what better news could you ask for? Anyway, you can start there, work your way up. And if nothing works, send them to a hypnotherapist. Sweta says, would you please expand on situations that we can control but should not control? Okay. Let's say someone does something to you which was wrong. And you could retaliate through the legal system. You could retaliate, let's say, through legal systems within ISKCON or some structure within ISKCON, so that that devotee would be reprimanded or punished, or in some way that devotee would have to suffer. So, is that actually what a devotee does? Well, unless there's some redeeming value for the devotee community or for helping the spread of Krishna consciousness, a devotee wouldn't do that. So, but you could do that, and you could legally perhaps win the case. The other point is, even if devotees said, well, it would be okay to do it, it's not wrong, do you want to spend the energy doing it? Because that energy would take away from other things that might be more valuable. So it's something you could do, but you shouldn't do. Or let's say you could do a project, you could do something, and you see some redeeming value in it, but there's a sense that Prabhupada wouldn't want it, or your spiritual master would be more pleased that you did something else. So even though you could do it, and it would be a good Krishna conscious project, you sense, or maybe you even know, your spiritual master would rather you do something else. Or you sense that it would be useful for Krishna consciousness, but maybe it wouldn't be good for me personally. Sometimes devotees are good at certain things, but they don't do them because they feel like, I don't think doing this would be good for my Krishna consciousness. Or I think by doing this I'd be taking the time out to do this, I'd be neglecting something in my spiritual life, and therefore even though I could do it, I don't do it. Or let's say you have a good business, and if you just up the ante of your business, which means you work, instead of 5 days a week, you work 6 days a week, instead of 8 hours a day, you work 10 or 12, and you could create maybe double your wealth, maybe you don't want to do that because it'll compromise your spiritual life. So even though you could do it, you don't. Now, maybe there's some emergency in your temple, and you're renting a building, and the landlord says you have to buy the building, and you know you could up your business, and temporarily, for the next 3 months, you up your business, and you make enough money so that you can put a down payment on the building. That's different. That's a temporary situation. But on an ongoing situation, say, I could do this, but the ramifications of doing it may not be beneficial. So that would be an example. I'm sure there are other examples I'm not thinking of, but there could be many examples of, the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity, what is it? Oh Lord, grant me the serenity to accept what I can't control, and what is it? Control what I can, accept what I can't. One of my godbrothers said, the serenity prayer is not grant me the serenity to control what I can and not control what I can't. It's to control what I should control. And that makes so much more sense, because control what I can, no. It's not necessarily I should control what I can, it's I should control what I should control. There's a lot of things I could control that I shouldn't control, right? Isn't it? Obviously. But I think this huge paradox is that sometimes the most important thing to control is our own emotions, and we don't control that. And we try to control somebody else or some other situation. And why are we trying to control that situation? Because we're not controlling our own emotions. So I hope that helps. What I would say, Sweta, is you try to think in your own life of things. And we all should try to think in our own life of things we're trying to control that we don't need to control. We should not control. And that's an important lesson. Because how much energy do you have for Krishna consciousness? Well, you only have so much, and you only have so many years. And there's priorities in our sadhana, and there's priorities in our service. So if I put my energy into A, B, and C, it's going to take away from D, E, and A, B, C, D, E, F, yeah, D, E, and F, and maybe G also. So although I could do A, B, C, and D, or A, B, and C, it's going to take away from something else. So these are considerations. Okay, I can do this, but that means to do this, I neglect this. I put my consciousness on this, my energy into this. That means I'm not putting it into that. So although I can do this, is that exactly the best thing for my spiritual life? So that's how Prabhupada wanted us to think. You know, just because you could do it doesn't mean you should do it, because it may not be good for you. It may be harmful for your Krishna consciousness, maybe even not harmful, may even be harmful materially or emotionally. So these are considerations. So that's a good lesson. Not, my Lord, let me understand that, you know, what is it? God, I can't remember the Serenity Prayer. Give me the power to change what I can, to accept what I can't change. Not change what I can, change what I should. That's important to remember. If you remember nothing else today from this class, remember, change what you should, not change what you can. That's the big lesson. And let go of what you cannot change, but also let go of what you should not change. So it's not change what I can and let go of what I can't change. Change what I should change and let go of what I can't change, but let go also of what I should not, what I could change, but I should not change. And Kat says, what I'm saying is relevant in my life. I think it's relevant. I think it's one of the most relevant topics for all of us. I'm sure everybody feels that way. Because, you know, life is about situations which we can't control. And Krishna created the world that way and said, you see, I told you you're not the controller. Do you get it? Do you understand it? Because if you don't, I'm going to put more situations in front of you that are going to frustrate you because you can't control them. I've been recently dealing with a situation that comes up, and I just made a video about this because it's so common. It comes up for many devotees when they want to get married and there's no one to marry, or the person they want to marry doesn't want to marry them, or they find out that the person they want to marry is not as great as they thought, and it's very frustrating. And you can't make somebody love you, you can't make somebody like you, or just because you think they would be a good husband or wife doesn't mean they think like that. And that's sometimes really difficult. Maybe one of the most difficult things is you become attracted to someone, and they're either, you get to know them and you find that they're not really the right person, or you find that they're, not really interested, or you find that they are actually in love with somebody else, and you know that somebody else is not as good a person as you, and you think, you're convinced they wouldn't be happy with that other person. This is all like real life, but it sounds like Hollywood, but this is what happens. And it's so difficult to accept that, but we don't have a choice. And these are lessons Krishna's showing us. These are lessons we have to let go, even if our heart is set on making something happen. We always have to enter every situation knowing it may not work, and I always have to have this door which I can go back into and say, okay, I'm going to walk out. That's very, very important, because if we don't do that, then we get caught within the matrix of Maya and get thrown around, and it becomes difficult to be Krishna conscious. Okay. So, Deepal's going to send me the protocol. Fast recovering relief from allergy. Yeah. Raphael says, I need sense gratification to attain sustain spiritual growth, but be careful. A little salt, but not too much salt. That was how Prabhupada looked at sense gratification. A little sense gratification to keep you going. Okay. How do we know when to let go in practical life, in relationship, or in making money, or when continue and make further endeavor? I think I answered that. When it's interfering with your spiritual life, or even interfering with your sanity materially, emotionally, psychologically, physically, or when it's obvious that it's going to be extremely difficult to achieve it. And there are times that when devotees are trying to achieve something extremely difficult, Prabhupada said, just stop. It's too much endeavor. And what he meant was it's taking away from more important things. And I was looking for a farm as a young temple president in Canada, and we were going out looking. And we had stopped doing Harinam, which was our daily activity, because we were going out all day with the real estate agent, looking at different properties. And I was kind of getting worried, thinking, well, where's this going? Could we actually afford a farm? Could we actually manage a farm? Because at that point, we maybe had 8 devotees. So, and we really had no money. I'm not sure why we wanted to get a farm, but I'm not sure why we were looking at that point. Maybe we were very optimistic, thinking like if we found the right land, somehow or other, the money would just fall from the sky. But anyway, fortunately, Krishna helped me realize that this probably is not a good idea. So I wrote to Prabhupada and said, well, we're looking at properties every day, and I'm not sure practically how we're going to do this, but one thing for sure is that we're not going out on Harinam, and that was our main activity. And so I said, I think maybe we should stop this idea of getting a farm because it's taking away from Harinam. Prabhupada said yes. He agreed with my intuition. So something like that could be, okay, here's a worthy project, develop a farm, community, and so on. But in that situation, it was just taking away from our main work, which at that point was Sankirtan, and we didn't really have facilities to develop the farm. So that could be an example. You're just trying to do something, and it's, sometimes I'm sure you've had this experience. You're trying to do something, and you're running into wall after wall after wall after wall, and you start to think, well, maybe Krishna doesn't want this. Because sometimes we want to do something, and everything just happens very easily. It just falls into place, and you think, oh, this is Krishna's will. It may not necessarily be, but that's normally how we would understand it. And if we're running into wall after wall after wall, maybe Krishna wants us to try harder, but maybe Krishna is saying that this is not necessary. At least in my case, with this situation with Srila Prabhupada, when I wrote him, that's how Prabhupada took it, and that's how I took it. So that's an example. But to me, my gut instinctive answer is when, and this is supported by Prabhupada and Shastra, but this is just how I always feel. If I'm making an effort to such an extent that I have to compromise my sadhana, then okay. Temporarily, yeah, that's fine. We're organizing some big event, this and that, for this week, But on a permanent basis, then we can say, maybe we need to slow it down. Maybe this is too much. So, you may have emergency situations and exceptions to that. But that's the general idea. Okay. I was a person who had traumatic death experience from previous life, and regression helped me to overcome it. I recommend regression. It's very healing. Okay, well, there you go. There's the answer. It's true that sometimes we bring past life experiences with us and then we're traumatized by things and nobody can understand, why are you so afraid of this? And it's likely that there was connection in the past. If someone in my extended family, they are a devotee of Krishna, fully aware of the soul doesn't die. Maybe hypnosis. Yeah, probably. It sounds like some phobia. God give me grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed. Oh, that's good. Things that cannot be changed. Well, let me read this. God, give me grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed. Courage to change the things which should be changed. Yes, that's right. And the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. That's not the popular one we have in America. The one in America says, I can change. Living one day at a time, enjoying the moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will. Wow. So that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next life. Yeah. So reasonably happy in this life just means peaceful, so that we can execute our devotional service. Yeah. Well, as I said, until we learn to accept what we can't control, we're going to be reasonably unhappy and disturbed. And every time there's a situation you can't control, just see it. Just remember, Krishna's teaching me a lesson. So Manjari says, even after understanding the soul is eternal, it's hard to tolerate the degradation of the body. Definitely. But the only way ultimately is through detachment. Detachment is so Aditi's given us the German Serennitzprazer. Of course, I can't speak German, so I don't know. She's probably laughing at my German. So, Manjari, detachment is the panacea to suffering, definitely. When things are difficult, whether it's physically, emotionally, or whatever, detachment is it's the real medicine. And so I would just recommend to everyone, as I recommend to myself, as we said yesterday, it's natural to be attached. Just don't get so attached that when those things are taken away, you go completely insane. Detachment is the basis of our sanity in this world. And detachment leaves us the space in which we can put Krishna in our life and he can stay there. So that's always been my kind of guiding light. So let's see what. Yes, DT gave the prayer. When all this pandemic world situation ends, which it will be the best for preaching about nutrition, because the cause of the virus is because we eat animals, or preach more meditation. God, he's asking what we should preach. I would say, according to the culture and environment and the mentality of people, you kind of sense, what are people thinking? He's saying when the pandemic is over, okay, what's the ramification? You kind of see the mood in the world, or in your country, or where you're preaching. What's the mood of people? What are they thinking? And then play into that, address what's on people's minds. address their fears, address their concerns. I'm not sure what their fears and concerns will be, but I was thinking this morning we're gonna give a talk at 5 o'clock my time on Zoom. It's for the devotees in Australia, and I'll arrange to send out a link. If you're in Europe, it's going to be too late, but anywhere west of the US, which means Midwest, California, Hawaii, China, Japan, all those places, that'll be good timing for you. If you're in Europe, it'll be like 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, unless you stay up that late. So we're going to do a class on what we can learn from what's happening in the world now. And, there's much to learn. And as I was saying this morning, I was thinking, and now I just forgot, but I was thinking this morning, is that possible? I could forget that so easily. But how, actually I was thinking, we're so unprepared for this. We're so unprepared for nature reacting this way. But I think Prabhupada is trying to prepare us by making us realize that there's so much instability in this world. And it's kind of like we don't want to admit that. And that's something we have to accept. And we're going to read something in a minute that Prabhupada said that's amazing. Yeah. Here's the one. See, Vrindavan, she's quoting, "The things I cannot change." Yes. But I would say should not. Cannot and should not. Right? Okay. But we may, Harish is asking, we may fall into the consciousness that this is not working, and we lose enthusiasm to put enough work. So how to understand that something is really not working and not meant for me versus something is meant for me and I need to work on it? That is an excellent question, which may require some discussion with your friends or senior devotees, because you really have to look at the pros and cons of everything. And you have to look at your own consciousness, your own fears and beliefs and so on, because maybe it's your fears and beliefs that are preventing you from being successful. Or maybe Krishna wants you to do something else, and he doesn't want you to be successful doing this, because this is not what you're meant to do. And so, this is a difficult question. And I would say even for advanced devotees, this is sometimes a difficult question. I remember Tamal Krishna Maharaj decided, or was deciding, to do a PhD because Hridayananda Maharaj was encouraging him that we need influence in academia. We need to be running the departments of religion. We need to be sharing the Vaishnava view with academia, because if we don't share it, they'll get it from someone who's not a devotee, and they won't get the right view. So I was there in Dallas when he was trying to make the decision, and he was asking us, "What do you think?" He was actually asking everybody, "What do you think?" It was not a decision that was made easily, and it was not a decision that was made quickly. He thought about it endlessly. He discussed it endlessly. He looked at it obviously from the perspective of what would please Prabhupada, what would he want me to do, and so forth and so on. And then eventually he decided, for various reasons, that this is what Prabhupada would want me to do. So something like that. So even a devotee of that standard, it's not always easy to understand. And even to this day, there are probably people who would say, well, I think that was the right decision or the wrong decision. There will be people who will disagree. I mean, many people agree, but some will disagree. So, and sometimes all this may sound strange to some of you. Sometimes there's an intuition where you just know this is the wrong thing to do. You can feel it. This is not good. Then we have a question. This is a good question. What about the Juhu situation? Prabhupada seemed to be prepared to push no matter what happens, despite all difficulties. Would that be more for advanced devotee? Well, I think Prabhupada could see the value of that property and what could be done there and how important that was. So, and I think he felt that he could win, but he said, well, if we lose, it'll just be a parking lot for our buses. That was at one point. But I think, Prabhupada had vision maybe we don't have, so he could see how valuable that preaching would be. And if something is that valuable, it's worth pushing for. And it was also a temporary situation. So that wasn't normal, that in Prabhupada's life he was always fighting like that, against all odds. Although you could say that in a sense, it was always against all odds, but not to that degree. And also Prabhupada said he promised he installed Radharasa Bihari in a shed and promised them, I will build you a temple. So at that point, what's he going to do? He promised Radharasa Bihari, I'll build you a temple. He couldn't back down at that point. So that's a unique situation. When you make a promise to Krishna, I'm going to do something, then yeah, come hell or high water, you do it. Hari says, we can try to detach from something, but the memory may haunt us. So what to do then? Hare Krishna. Get something else in your memory to occupy it. That's better. And here's a little insight into detachment. In order to detach from something you're not naturally detached from, you have to really look at how that attachment is harmful. You have to really confront why this attachment is bad, what it's doing to me, why it's harmful, etc. Because detachment comes from understanding the negative consequences of the attachment. And attachment comes from experiencing the pleasure of that attachment. So if I have an attachment, and every time I think about it, it gives me pleasure, it creates more attachment. If I have an attachment to something, but every time I think about it, I think of the consequences, what it would actually be like if I did it, how I would suffer if I did it, all the problems that would ensue if I did it on any level, then it detaches me. And that's straight from Patanjali in Yoga Sutras, the psychology of attachment and detachment, and I think it's very useful for us to understand this. And we can see how we first became detached, and we talked about this yesterday. How we first became detached was that we learned the consequences of material activity, the karmic consequences, and the nature of the material world, and the nature of suffering and misery. Prabhupada talked about it a lot, and that started to detach us, and we already had some understanding of it. And so the more we heard of that, the more detached we became. Not because we were Krishna conscious, but because we wanted to free ourselves from suffering, and we were very focused on the negative aspects of what we were doing. Now, let's give another example. A lot of devotees do not like allopathic medicine, and they prefer other forms, Ayurvedic or some natural form of medicine. And one of the reasons that they prefer this is they've studied a little bit about the modalities of the different systems of medicine, and also some of the negatives that result from the allopathic treatment and diagnosis. And so they say, oh, there are too many negatives here, I don't want it. I want to do it different. I want to do something differently. If I can heal myself in an alternative way without these negatives, I would prefer to do that. So by being aware of the negatives or the limitations of that modality of medicine, they can say, okay, I don't want to take prescription drugs, I want to take some other form of medicine that's more natural. So just apply that to anything in your life, and you can see there's a lot of things that you're detached from because you understand they're bad, and therefore you don't do them. And so if there's anything you're attached to, you want to detach from, you have to look at the negative side of it. And you might say, well, that's pessimism. We should be optimistic. Well, not necessarily should we be optimistic about everything. It would be foolish to be optimistic about something that's bad. I'm ready to drive off a cliff, and the person in the car says, you're going to drive off the cliff. And said, you're so pessimistic. You need to be optimistic. We can fly off the cliff. So that's just foolishness. So we should be pessimistic in a realistic way, optimistic in a realistic way, not artificially optimistic or artificially pessimistic. Everything, the world, the sky isn't falling, but everything's not perfect. And so if you want to detach from something or some situation, you really have to think about the negative ramifications of engaging with that, whatever those ramifications may be, externally or internally. Oh, I love to eat this. Yeah, what's a negative ramification? You're going to gain 5 kgs if you eat it, or you're going to sleep an extra hour, or you're going to be sluggish or something like that. It's like, okay, my tongue loves it, but if I focus enough on how bad this food is for me, and the more I understand how it's affecting me physiologically, the easier it is to stop eating it, right? Something like that. You all have so many questions. Yeah, so if you're not on our online notification, go to my website, get on the online notification. And then I will send out the link to the class today on that online notification, and also post the link on Facebook. Because for some reason we want to do Zoom. I did a Zoom class the other day. It was quite nice because rather than chat, you get to talk and everybody gets to see you, which is really cool. And if you upgrade Zoom, pay more, another $50 a month, which I haven't done yet, we can form groups where I could, let's say that there's 50 of you here, we could form 10 groups of 5 of you, and I could say, discuss this. And you'd all go into a room and discuss it. And then I can pull you out of the room and then ask for the leader of each group, well, what did you discuss? So that's like creating a live atmosphere. So that's really nice. And so we're right now planning, I'm planning to do a course on what we can learn, all the things we can learn from the coronavirus. This is one, how to detach. And I think the other one, which I was trying to articulate, I think my brain went dead, was being prepared, or being aware of what could go wrong and being somewhat prepared. The Zoom class will be recorded, yeah, and then we could also send that out. So Radhapriya, I will send that to you, and then you can send that out. And then you can put it on Facebook. I think that Radhapriya says, I think when a person suffers in their early years the death of someone that is very near, it helps to understand death. I lost my mother when I was 4, and then I felt so much pain when I see another family left his or her body. So you're saying it impacts, it helps to understand death. But it sounds like you're saying that you get impacted by it because it's so horrific when you're young. Or you're saying that you understand it better and you understand people's pain better. Or are you saying both? I never saw anyone die till my father died. That was in 1996, I believe. Something like that. Yeah, that was the first time I saw it. And if you ask me what was it like, I think it's interesting, because this is something we've studied our whole life as devotees. We're not the body, and then you actually get to see it, and it's like, okay, everything Prabhupada that you taught, Krishna, everything you taught, now I see it. The soul just left the body, there it is. The body's there. The soul is gone, and the body now is going to decompose. It's just matter. It was actually nice to see it. And you might say, but that was your father. And this, yeah. But somehow or other, you know, that was 1996, so that was 36 years after I'd become a devotee, and I left home when I was 18, so it was 38 years after I left home, so it wasn't a strong bond there. But also, Prabhupada said, your parents will become devotees, so that was good. So, you know, it was, for me, it was a happy occasion. I got to chant with him, got to read Bhagavad Gita to him in his last days. So I was actually happy. Maybe you think I should have been lamenting also, but it was such an auspicious departure. I was happy. Careful understanding leads to detachment, yeah. 3 weeks, Raphael says, I've been free from attachment, so peaceful and blissful. But I heard very sweet love voice of older Vaishnavi, and I became attached again. Yeah, it's the ultimate paradox. We become attached to the things that cause us pain, and detached from the things that could ultimately help us in Krishna consciousness. So what a condition we're in. Hare Krishna. We don't want to allow ourselves. We don't want to allow ourselves to be in that condition. Okay, so Rasika is here with us. Premananda Gaur is with us. Now, this is what I've been waiting for the last hour, but we had so many questions. This is what I'm waiting for. This quote from Srila Prabhupada. So, now, Kamaniya, can you put that quote up? We're going to read this and discuss this. I believe I put the audio of this quote on my Facebook page. I did send it to some of you in WhatsApp. A few of you I sent in WhatsApp. And several of you said, it's difficult to understand. Is it available on WhatsApp? Excuse me, is it available on database? I looked for it. I didn't find it. And so this morning I spent about 20 minutes transcribing it. So this is transcribed without editing, exactly as Prabhupada said it. And so you can read it here. I'm going to read it off my computer. It's a little easier. What is called that? Quarantine. Prabhupada said quarantine. He actually said it twice, so let's get it exactly. I'm going to edit my document here. Quarantine, and I'm going to put this up on Facebook. You are suffering. How can you violate the nature's law? It is not possible. In other words, if you violate, you have to suffer if you violate nature's law. How can you violate nature's law and not suffer? That's what Prabhupada. It is not possible. Nature is so strict. A little deviation will put you into suffering. This is going on. And then you're probably wondering, when did Prabhupada say this? And I don't have a date and a place, because I just have an audio clip. But based on one speculation is that based on the quality and nature of the recording, it sounds like New York in the early days. It's not a good recording. And so later on, recordings got better. So this is a bad recording, and so that's a speculation. I can't say where, but I just kind of felt like it was in the early days. Okay. Nature's law is so strict, a little deviation will put you into suffering. This is going on. That is Yamaraj. And if you violate more and more and more, then T-H-E-N, excuse me, then you'll suffer more and more and more. This is the law. You cannot escape. That is the general law everywhere. All over the world, life for life. Similarly, in God's law, there is no such thing that, if you kill, there's no such thing. If you kill a human being, you will be killed. And if you kill an animal, you will not be killed. That is imperfect laws, man-made laws. You are maintaining so many slaughterhouses, and when it will be mature, there will be war, the wholesale murder, finished. Then he said something I couldn't understand, maybe a Sanskrit word. And he said, finished again. You'll have to suffer. Don't think that innocent animals, they cannot protest. Let us kill and eat. No, you'll also be punished. Wherefrom accumulation of your sinful activities? Why do you think there is no punishment, there is no God? In other words, if sins are accumulating, you shouldn't think there's not going to be a reaction. This is utopian. Don't think like that. Utopian. There is God. There is His government. There are His agents. There are witnesses. And otherwise, why there are different varieties of life? Different varieties of life. Why? 8,400,000 species of life. Everyone is a living, in other words, why are there so many species if there's not Yamaraj controlling everything and karma? Everyone is a living being. The trees are living beings, the fishes are living beings, the ants are living beings, the mosquitoes are living beings, and the human beings are living beings. The demigod also living being. The cats, dogs, everyone is a living being. So we should be very careful. This human form of life is a chance to make your choice whether you're going on being punished like this or go back to home, back to Godhead. You can imagine there is no God, no Yamaraj, no punishment. That is your fancy. But it is not a fact. The fact is that if we commit sin, we must suffer from it, and there is nobody in the world who can check it. Hare Krishna. So, that is obviously the quote which is relevant to our situation. So, I thought it would be wise for us to discuss this a little bit because there's so much in it. And I don't know the context and why Prabhupada is referring to quarantine, because I don't know when he said it and what was going on, but obviously something must have been going on that Prabhupada is relating to quarantine. And he says you are suffering, so there's some situation where there's some disease somewhere on the planet at that time, and people are being quarantined. So Prabhupada's making a comment on that, which is obviously what's happening now, and so this is relevant to our situation. So he's referring to quarantine, and he's saying you are suffering. And then the next statement is how you can violate nature's law. It is not possible. In other words, what he means is You can't think that you can violate nature's law and not suffer. So how can you violate nature's law? He's saying, no, you can't violate nature's law. The law is so strict. So he says, the law is so strict, if there's a little deviation, you will be put into suffering. So what does Prabhupada mean? Okay, Krishna's arrangement, Krishna's laws. If we don't follow those laws, there's a reaction. Now, of course, we could say, well, the reaction is, carelessness on the part of the meat industry of China or whatever. So that's one cause, more apparent cause. Unclean conditions, or I don't actually know exactly. Was it that someone ate a bat, or just there was a bat in the market and the bat was diseased and someone went to the market and got the disease or something? In any case, there was a bat, as I understand. And it's something to do with raising animals for food. But anyway, so Prabhupada's saying, this is Yamaraj. And so we think of Yamaraj as the god of death. But here Prabhupada's saying that, no, he's talking about punishment right now on this planet, that Yamaraj regulates it. And if you break the law, there has to be a reaction. So this is something I think, talking about Nepal, okay. This is something I think we're going to need to be able to communicate to the world, that what we see going on is a reaction. And they'll say, to what? And I would say, you think about it. You try to think about what's going on in the world, and nature is reacting. Nature is angry. We've done something wrong. What do you think we've done wrong? You can throw the question back. If you violate more and more and more, you'll suffer more and more. This is the law you cannot escape. This is the law you cannot escape. That is a general law everywhere, all over the world, life for life. Similarly, in God's law, there's no such thing. So Prabhupada's saying, he's saying, you think that only a human being should be punished if we kill a human being, but we should not be punished if we kill an animal. And he's saying, no, it's not like that. And then I think one of the most significant things Prabhupada says here, he said, these are your imperfect man-made laws. You maintain slaughterhouse, so when it will be mature, there will be war, wholesale war, murder, finish. The problem, you'll have to suffer. This is really heavy because Prabhupada has said this so many times, and I think this is a really important point for us to share with people. Just like now there's a reaction. This reaction is built up karmically, right? And I think we need to share with people that you can't go on living a certain way, exploiting the earth, killing animals and so on, and expect that everything's just going to be fine and there's no reaction. And Prabhupada is saying here, there's going to be a reaction. And right now, we're witnessing a reaction. And this is not going to be the last reaction. And I think that's an important message to the world. This is not the last reaction. This is a warning. There are going to be more reactions unless we stop and think about what we're doing to ourselves, to one another, to the planet, to the animals. And so to the rainforest, as Vrinda Sundari is saying. Yeah. Destroying Amazon rainforest. So I think this is one of the messages we want to share with people. This is, everybody says it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call for it's a wake-up call for many things, but for us, we understand this is a wake-up call for lifestyle change. Otherwise, worse things will happen. I don't know if people can understand this, but we have to try to have. Some will understand for sure, but many may not. Don't think innocent animals cannot protest. Let us kill and eat. No, you'll also be punished. there'll be an accumulation of sin, and don't think there'll be no punishment. There is no God. And then Prabhupada said, this is utopian. What does Prabhupada mean by utopian? He says, you're just imagining this. This is just your wishful thinking that it's this way. But it's not. Okay. Now, don't think like that. Utopian. There is God, there is His government, there is His agents, they are witnesses. And otherwise, so this is an interesting point. It's like you know that sometimes people just think any way they want to think, and the way they think this is true. No, it's not this, it's like this, it couldn't happen this way. That's what Prabhupada's saying. He said, don't think like this. This is just your utopian idea that you're not going to suffer a consequence. So it's nice now, at least there's a platform in the world to talk about why do you think this happened? And where's the world going? And as Nora is saying, I don't think nature is angry. The situation is a result of our violent actions through so many years. Everything comes back as we send out. Yeah. So this is anyway. We can explain to people there's a karmic consequence coming back, and if people understand that, then they can reflect on what they're doing. It may not always be tit for tat. Like Prabhupada said, animal slaughter, the violence comes back in terms of war. Now, for some people, it may not exactly make sense, but at least we understand there's karmic reactions for everything we do. And the way the reactions come may not always be logical according to us, but reactions come nevertheless. In sometimes they come tit for tat, sometimes they come in different ways that maybe not so logical. Yeah, the Christians say, it doesn't matter what you put in your mouth, it matters what comes out of your mouth. But we would say, what you put in your mouth affects what comes out of your mouth. So Prabhupada says, we should be very careful. Human form of life is a chance to make your choice, whether you're going to be punished like this or go back home, back to God. So this is what I like. The last thing Prabhupada said, and I think this is a common problem today. You can imagine there's no God. You can imagine there's no Yamaraj, no karma, no punishment. That is your fancy. Fancy means that's just your dreaming. This is the way you want to see it. But it is not a fact. The fact is that if we commit some sin, we must suffer from it. And there is nobody in the world who can check it. So what Prabhupada's saying is this is all set up by nature's law under the jurisdiction of the way Krishna set up everything. And so, like with anything, put your hand in fire, it burns. If we commit sin, there's a reaction. You can't get out of it. You can't philosophize your way out of it. You can't imagine your way out of it. You can't optimize your way out of it. It's just the way it is. And if there's suffering, obviously if there's suffering, there's a cause of the suffering. That means we did something wrong. That's where it starts with. Maybe you don't even know what you did wrong, but maybe you just think, oh, it's because they had an unclean meat market, or they weren't careful, or whatever, or that viruses mutate and there's always new ones. Okay, but then you want to go deeper. Why? It's like a biological warfare on human society right now. So whether you say nature is angry, or it's karmic consequence, or you don't know, at least we from the spiritual perspective say, no, this is a reaction coming on human society for all the horrible things that we are doing to the planet, to one another, to the animals. And hopefully people will appreciate, or at least think about it. Think about, that's what I would suggest. Think about your lifestyle. And it's not going to be communicatable to everyone. So you had some comments, but I think so this quote, I will put this quote on Facebook, on my Facebook page. I just transcribed it. Like, I finished transcribing it 5 minutes before we started this class because I wanted to get it perfect. And so it grammatically, it may not make sense. This is, I think, Prabhupada when he first came to America. So the English is not 100% perfect, but I transcribed it that way. And I'm just going back through your comments, which I think Param says people don't associate problems in the world with eating meat. That's Goloka Prabhu said he read about a scientific experiment done where cows were killed and somehow the pain vibrations or waves went up and caused an earthquake. There's so much auspiciousness that happens when cows are taken care of. Yeah, Prabhupada refers to quarantine 13 times, but this quote wasn't on there because Prabhupada was put in quarantine also when he was entering our country. Everything auspicious comes from taking care of cows, pleasing cows. So yeah, that education has to be there. So I'm going back because we missed so many good instructions. Okay, we missed some of your comments. Marco says, follow the instructions of the spiritual master is the best way to advance in Krishna consciousness. But what if I don't have a guru? Can I follow Prabhupada? Since Prabhupada's your guru. Maybe off topic a little bit. Yeah, follow Prabhupada. He's your guru. And there's so many senior devotees who can guide you. Krishna Karshini says, I'm wondering if it's good to prefer a specific kind of death. Oh, Krishna, let me die in this way, yeah. Let me die now when I'm thinking of you. Boom. And so, yeah, okay, that's King Kulik Shekar. And even ask Krishna for a specific type of death. I died in an airplane crash. I had a trauma for years. After regression, I realized this was a good quick death. It may sound strange, but I prefer to die quickly. Okay. Quickly with the holy name on my tongue. Not be a sick and old dying. Yeah, I think that's true for all of us. We can pray that way. There's no harm. But just accept whatever Krishna has in store. Stay healthy so you won't be old and sick. I think it's natural to pray and think that way, but in a more advanced stage of Krishna consciousness, I think one would accept anything. And that's what we were talking about yesterday. Oh, Krishna will take care of you. Just have that faith. Well, Nora was saying, I don't think nature is angry. Maybe we don't look at it so much like anger, but as Prabhupada said, their natural laws, when broken, then they'll be suffering. And what else? It seems that still reactions are smaller than we deserve by the grace of the Sankirtan movement. We should have at least a few world wars. Yeah. Yeah, that's also there because there's so much kirtan going on. It's purifying the atmosphere and it's reducing the reactions of sins. That worse things could happen. One devotee speculated. He said, I can't remember exactly who said this and the context, but it was something like maybe the world has become somewhat purified and this pandemic was actually supposed to be a world war with so many more people being killed, but it was reduced because of there was so much chanting on the planet. And that's also a viable explanation. I can't say for sure. But Prabhupada did say there would be war, but if the world became Krishna conscious, it would avert war. So there are lots of kirtan going on the planet now, more than ever. So that is definitely helping reduce the karma. And so that could be there, that things maybe should have been worse than they are. Mm. Mm. Yeah, it is sweet to read it as he said it. Mm. Is assisted suicide for terminal patients not good? Well, in the Vedic paradigm, when a person was in that position and they wanted to leave their body, they would stop eating. So they would just fast, and then naturally, their body's diseased, they're going to die anyway, so they would fast, and they would just naturally leave their bodies sooner, so they don't have to undergo all that pain. So that was considered, you could say, an self-assisted suicide. So I don't think it's a black and white issue. Generally, the idea is you shouldn't kill anyone, including yourself, because it's wrong and it's sinful. And there's karmic reaction. But if it's at the body's breaking down and it's dying anyway, then that, at least in traditional cultures, was the natural process, rather than try to keep the body alive and then put it, we say, well, if I pull the plug, they're going to die, assisted suicide. Yeah, but if you never put in the plug, they would have naturally died. So I think that's the way to look at it. That's not assisted suicide, because nature taking its course without all kinds of intervention, they would have naturally died. So we can look at it that way. So, okay, we didn't get to read any quotes from Srila Prabhupada today, but this was an important quote, I think, and something I want to give all of you so that you can read it and meditate on it and share with other people that what's going on today seems to be a reaction to breaking laws of nature, and at least we can reflect on that. There is planetary system this year. Used to be during, the astrologer said the constellation around March or end of February was the same constellation that took place during World War I, was it? So we should be grateful we have not had a war. It's not that bad. Yeah. It's kind of like biological warfare on the whole human society. But it seems, I know what I was thinking today also. It's really interesting. This is so interesting. I'll throw this out even though it's 9:30. That, it's obvious that if we all stay away from one another, we all stay home, and we just, work from home minimally, then we're going to get over this because we're not going to spread it. But the problem is, doing that is destructive for the economy. So I was thinking, this is like we have an economy that's at odds with what is actually beneficial for people. Not just now, but in general. And that is an interesting thing to meditate on. Like Trump is saying, well, hopefully by Easter, people could be back in the churches, and all the doctors are saying, no, that's too soon. We can't do that. And, Trump really wants to get the economy going because he's a business person, and also this is not good for him for re-election if the economy falls apart. So, he doesn't want to see the economy fall apart. He wants to get things going, as we all do. But isn't it interesting how we've got an economy that is at odds with this situation, and in many ways it's at odds with the welfare of the planet. In many ways it's at odds with the welfare of people in general. And so I think this becomes clear now that what is the best thing for the planet and people right now is totally at odds with what's best for the economy. But I think we can expand that and say that's always true. So if we quarantine, we're going to get through this with the least number of lives lost. But if we quarantine, it creates an economic problem. If we don't quarantine, the economy can recuperate and more people will die. So your choice, money or human life, you decide. Well, Brenda Sundar is saying that the higher authorities know. Yeah, the higher authorities want us to simplify. Stop killing animals and chopping down forests and buying things we don't need. But we've created an industrialized economy based on an industrialized culture that needs that. And there are, what's so interesting, there's so many workshops, there's so many advertisements, there's so many books about marketing, about selling. I don't think, hundreds of years ago, this was like a topic that really was on people's minds, how we're going to market this and that. There's just that little village, and, you come and buy what you're going to buy. So, we've become obsessed with making money, marketing, advertising. It's like everywhere you look, they're trying to sell you something, isn't it? Every web page, there's so many ads. Every Facebook page, there's just like, Hare Krishna. It's really a sad situation that we're being marketed everywhere for things we don't need. Okay. So, Marco, I have watch my daily videos, Marco, because one is on this topic about initiation. Give advice about choosing a guru. Well, let Krishna inspire you. Find that person who inspires you, enlightens you, opens your heart, makes you want to give yourself to Krishna. That's Guru. Krishna is the Guru, the person who brings you to Krishna, and the person who helps you get closer to Prabhupada. For now, just focus on Prabhupada. Get to know Prabhupada. And then you'll hear many senior devotees, and one specifically will really resonate with you and really connect you with Prabhupada. That's where you'll find Guru. Anyway, if you go to my website, there's a lot on this topic. It's under Guru Tattva, mahatmadas.com. Okay, so as I promised, this quote will go on Facebook. I have to get on Facebook on my computer. I'll put it up later today. And then I will, if you subscribe to my online notifications on my website, if you haven't already, and then we'll put the link for the class on Zoom. And then we'll also put that link on Facebook. And we'll see you tomorrow. Hare Krishna. One of these days, I may have a class at this time for China. And we may have to skip one day, but I'll try to avert it and maybe do a little earlier, like 6 a.m. for China. That should be 6 p.m. their time, and then finish by 8. And we do the class for China. I don't know if you can participate. I'd have to have maybe my computer on and my phone on. We're doing the 7 habits or the 10 habits of highly ineffective people. All the dysfunctions that I've seen in people's actions. We're going to discuss that. That's going to be interesting. I'm not sure when it's going to be, but if we can get you on that, we'll let you know. Hare Krishna. See you later tonight, 5 o'clock, if you're around. Hare Krishna.